Very exciting evening tonight. 6 o'clock. 6:07. We want to get going. This is the referendum presentation. It's Monday, June 21st, 2021. So we have, as folks will know, we're having potential referendums in November. We welcome our staff. Turn it over to bring up Donald, or?
No.
Mike, I'm joining the meeting.
Oh, welcome. Yes, for the record, Deputy Mayor Suzak is joining the meeting. It's a continuation from our 5:30 meeting downstairs.
We've divvied this up, Mr. Mayor, into 4 portions. Donna will be presenting on the roofs. JP and John will be coming up to present on the roads. I'll just give a little overview. Staff has worked very hard on this presentation. As you know, we gave sort of a preliminary outline at the last meeting. At this meeting, this is a full hour, well, with questions, presentation to the council and our folks at home, and it will be on our website, and it's in greater detail. But in addition to this, they've done a lot of work on roads and roofs, and there are much longer, more detailed presentations that will be also on our website. So people who would like to delve in a little further, there's a lot more information there. But for purposes of tonight, because we've done the road referendum so many times in the past, the need for an education portion of it is still crucial, but I think people have become inured and accustomed to these 5-year road referendums. Likewise with the roof, it's for a smaller portion. The 2 newer questions that we're going to be presenting is one is on the recreation referendum question we're hopeful that council will review, and then one on the newest with new information on the public safety complex. And I'll give a little summary at the end in regard to that one, which is a little unique. But now that Mr. Bosco has arrived, we can proceed without. Well, you're integral to this, so we wanted you to be present. So with that, I give you JP and John. They'll identify themselves and their job titles, and they will do the first presentation on Roads 2021.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Bronson, and hello, council members. My name is JP Rodriguez. I'm with the Town of Enfield Engineering Office. With me here today, I got John Cabibo, the Assistant Town Engineer. We're going to present to you the roads 2021. We're going to be touching on 3 subjects, which are the history of the program, the methodology that was used to develop the program, and the program itself. During the last 20 years, the Town of Enfield has done a tremendous job in reconstructing its roads. A total of 136 miles of roads have been reconstructed or rehabilitated at a cost of $133 million. This is a big number, 136 miles of roads during the last 20 years. On the next slides, you can appreciate the amount of work that has been done by the town. This is the roads year 2000. All the roads highlighted in red were addressed during this period. Then the roads 2000 and 2005, now we have the red and the yellow combined on this map. The roads 2005 wasn't as big of a program, but still effective. Now this is the roads 2000, 2005, and 2010. This is 15 years of work. The ones in green, those are the 2010. That was a big program back then. And then the biggest one was 6 years ago, the 2015 program. On this slide, you can see all the work that has been done here in town. I think it's been a great success. A lot of work has been done and a lot of good, repairing the road system here in the Town of Enfield. We also, the roads, they have a 20-year span, and they start to develop cracks. This needs to be addressed because we don't want water to penetrate and damage the road base. So we also have a maintenance program going on. We did it back in 2016, the streets in green there, and then we had again a program back in 2020, the ones in red, and we have a program this year where we're going to address about 10 miles of roads in the maintenance program. That's what we call it. With that being said, I turn it over to John, and he's going to talk about the methodology that we use to develop the program.
Thank you, JP. Again, I'm John Cabibo, your Assistant Town Engineer. When we start looking at these programs, we start with a road condition survey. We have a pavement consultant that we've been working with since 1999. Last time they did a full road survey where they looked at every street in town was 2018. And we work with them. They also have a program where we can input the amount of funds that we're looking to spend over a certain period of time, and they give us a recommended program, and their programs are recommended on the road conditions themselves and keeping the road condition up. We also, during the 5-year period, we maintain a complaint list, and they're from a number of different sources, from residents, councilmen, council people. So we have the complaint list that we use. When we talked with the Director of Public Works and DPW subcommittee, there were certain things that we wanted to look at. One of them was completing neighborhoods. You saw on those maps, we have done a lot of roads in a lot of areas, but there are a few areas that we've done most of the roads, but there's a few roads we haven't touched on. So we were looking at completing those. And also in other street areas that we haven't touched, we didn't want to do that piece. We wanted to do entire neighborhoods. So that was one of the other considerations that we made. One of the other points of direction that we received from DPW subcommittee was looking at some of the worst roads, the roads that are below a 60 PCI. PCI is a rating, 100 being a brand new road and 0 being it's crumbled. It's basically a gravel road. So we looked at those streets that were from 0 to 60. Like JP hit on the preventive maintenance or the crack sealing program, we're continuing with that. And like you said, we have one lined up for this year. So that's all part and parcel to keeping up with these roads. It's not always reconstruct or overlay. So we need to keep up with that, and we're moving in that direction. The other point of direction that we received from DPW subcommittee is always looking at the most cost-effective design alternatives. If we could do it less expensive, then we're going to do it. If the roads that we have, we can reuse the material. If we can reclaim it and reuse it, we're going to. We're going to try and stretch these dollars as far as we possibly can. As we have been through the program. A couple other considerations that we take into account is the Complete Streets policy. It's a policy the council passed several years ago, and really the gist of it is to look at every mode of transportation. It's not just about the vehicles, but it's about pedestrians and cyclists. So when we go into neighborhoods, if there's sidewalks in the neighborhoods and they're in bad condition, we're replacing them under this referendum. Bicycle access, you may be aware on Post Office Road and on Town Farm Road and Fletcher Road, we have a bike path or bike lanes, if you will, to give a little more safety for the cyclists. So those are some design considerations that we make. Another one is MS4 is a state drainage permit that the town has to maintain. And they have certain requirements, and their requirements are more about drainage. So when we're looking at drainage design for these roads, there's a few things that we need to look at. One of the items is curbing. If we have roads that we're redoing that do not presently have curbing, we won't be looking to add new curbing. The state wants us to look at having sheet flow as opposed to putting everything into catch basins and pipes and having concentrated outlets. One of the other things they're looking for is reducing the amount of pavement we have and doing that by narrowing the widths of roads that we can. And we can do that on some roads. We have roads in town that we have done that the older section of the road was built in the 50s, and it was narrower, and the newer sections say it was built in the 70s or 80s, is a wider section, and we can narrow those down and reduce the amount of pavement so that we're reducing the amount of runoff from these, and that's all parcel to the MS4 permit with the state. One of the other big considerations that we do is the public utilities, including our own sanitary sewers. Any utilities that are underground, sewers, water, and gas, we coordinate with these utilities on these projects so that we don't get into a situation. We're going to minimize the chances that we rebuild a road, we get new pavement, and then the utility has to go in and replace their facilities and cut the road up again. So we try to coordinate with them, and they work with us, and a lot of that comes down to scheduling. We'll give them a list of streets, and they may have things planned that they're going to do, and then we can adjust our schedules. We may push roads later in the program in later years, so give them an opportunity to get in and do their thing. And finally, as always, we're always looking for alternate funding sources to help to pay for these items, and we have done that in the past. I mean, one example was we had Freshwater Boulevard. We had a lot of work done there, and that was with state and federal funds. So we'll always be looking for alternate funding sources to augment the referendum itself. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to JP to finish
All right,
up.
thank you, John. Okay, so here we have the street list, the proposed street list for rehabilitation for the next 2 slides. The first column is the name of the streets. They're listed in alphabetical order, and then you got the from and to. Those are the limits. Then we got the PCI, like John said. A lot of these roads, they have a real low PCI, so we are forecasting that most of them probably they need to be reconstructed, totally rehabilitated. They're in really bad conditions. We have a few mills and overlays, but from the PCI number, we know they're in bad shape. The highlighted in blue are the streets that the engineering office is recommended that we do, and the rest of the streets, they're, like John pointed out, they're from the complaint list or the streets that came out of the pavement software program.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So the total amount, we're looking at $30.5 million. The 0.5 comes out of if you can back up one slide, please. I forgot to mention the first row on the list is a sidewalk program. It's we got about 6,000 feet of sidewalk that is bituminous sidewalk. It's in really bad condition. It's a tripping hazard, and it should be replaced. So that we got that number there, 645,000 to replace those 6,000 feet of walks. So the total for the construction cost, and this includes the design, the construction of the project, the inspection, and the police, because we need to call the police if we're doing these roads in arterials or collectors, and it comes out at $29.9 million. Then we got the finance cost and the management cost, so the total is $30.565 on the proposed program. Now, this is the map highlighted in purple. These are all the streets that we're going to be rehabilitating. As you can see, we're pretty much going all over town. We're trying to complete neighborhoods or finish up small streets or areas that they haven't been touched in the last 20 years. So even though a lot of these streets are small, like in the Thompsonville area, if we don't add those streets, due to their PCI, they will never get picked into the program. I mean, we'll never hit them if we don't do it this way. This is a very, very preliminary construction schedule, but we need to start someplace. Like John pointed out, water mains, gas mains, and other utilities underground, if they're in bad condition, they need to be replaced before we do the road. We don't want to do a road and then boom, 1 year later the water main breaks. So like right now, I'm doing work on Peace Street. We're reconstructing the road, and we have to wait now for the gas company. We just found out the gas main is too shallow, and they're replacing that main. That is costing us about 1 or 2 weeks or delay waiting for them. But it is good that they're doing it now before we pave. So like I said before, this is very preliminary, but it's a starting point to get the schedule going. And this is the mapping of the schedule that we just saw. This is per year. The blue will be 2022, then the pink 2023, the red will be 2024, green 2025, and then the gray will be 2026. And this is very preliminary, but it's a starting point to start working on the schedule for the roads.
And I would ask that we hold questions, Mayor, to the end so we get through all the presentations. Then staff will stay, and if there are any other questions we can answer, we will. And if anybody has questions they think about after, you can email me, and we'll get them answered after tonight. Thank you, gentlemen, for a very thorough presentation. Now, Mr. Nunes, he will present on the roofs 2021. Mr. Jeff Lenowitz has been very, very involved in this, but he is on vacation this week, so.
Yes, Jeffrey is luxuriating in sunny Florida right now, so lucky him. Good evening, everyone. Donald Nunes, Director of Public Works. So our current roof replacement strategy is funding a typical elementary school project at pre-referendum limits for about 3 years through CIP. So essentially what we're requesting every year for 3 years is about $680,000 through CIP just to get done with one phase of one section of that particular school. Because it takes 3 years or so to complete a roof in this fashion, each phase purchases less roof from inflationary cost adjustments, supply chain issues, which we're having now, and material shortages, which is another huge factor that we're coming up with right now. DPW has performed an expense analysis from FY 2016 until June 1st of this year, and we have found out that we have expensed, on average, $77,000 per year to fix leaks on our failing roofs. Now, the graphic is simple, but it really kind of tells the story of what happens here. That $77,000 does not include soft costs, such as the actual leak damage that it performed, such as interior ceilings, the lighting fixtures, cleaning and drying carpeting, repairing alarm systems, B&G time, and custodial time. It does not include that, which but that 77 is just given to our roofing contractors. Now, the current status of the 25 roofs that we inventoried, we have 2 that are in excellent condition that are showing no visible defects or are near new. We have 4 that are in good condition, and those are still, the repairs are still a cost-effective method to maintain it and to keep going forward. We have 5 in the fair condition, which are approaching the end of their useful life, and repairs are imminent, if not already overdue. And unfortunately, the last graphic, we have 14 roofs that are in poor condition, which are critically damaged and are well beyond their useful life, and their immediate replacement is required. Now, the strategy for roofs 2021 be $13.7 million package for both town and school roofs. It would encompass 7 facilities, approximately 406,000 square feet of roof over 5 years. Now, to help you visualize what 406,000 square feet is, the Home Depot plaza, if you will, so from Home Depot to Dollar Tree to Dick's, plus Costco is about 408,000 square feet. So next time you're cruising down Freshwater Boulevard, you get an understanding of how much roof that is, or the next time you're in Costco, understand that that is that much roof that will have to be replaced through this program. Now, the 7 selected roofs, or buildings, if you will require multiple year CIP contributions for total replacements, and/or they're critical to town services that would cause a severe impact to the community. That's why those were chosen. The bonus part about this is that the school roofs, if they meet the certain criteria, will be able to receive up to 70% reimbursement of eligible cost, and that's estimated about $5 million worth of reimbursement coming back from the state. Now, taking those out of the CIP just reduces our CIP burden to tackle other roofs or other important projects that we have going through either the vehicle replacement program or other CIP projects from all of the departments. But if we keep burdening the $680,000 for many projects, it's going to affect other things down the road. Now, the roof schedule, these are the schools and buildings that we're proposing, is Parkman. You'll notice it's Phase 1, and I'll get to that in a second. The Public Safety Complex, Stowe Phase 1, Alcorn, Prudence Crandall, Enfield Street School, and the Annex. Parkman and Stowe are listed in phases right now because portions of that roof are not eligible for reimbursement. So we're trying to get the best bang for our buck, and we may massage and maneuver this around. So when those come due, they'll be able to have 70% replacement, or reimbursement, I'm sorry, to do that. So that's why this is just a very preliminary program right now. But again, we're trying to work with this to make sure that we can get all the eligible the reimbursements that we can through the state. If the bidding climate is good and everything works out well, we've added a continuation list to the project, just in case, again, all these roofs still need attention. The senior center, the town hall, shelter, animal shelter, EMS, Old Town Hall, DPW, Pearl Street, and Central Library. If there's any money left over from the original 13.7, again, due to favorable climate, we can go to attack any one of these instead of going it through CIP. So as long as these are on it and we can continue it, I think we'll be good with that. And lastly, again, how did we get here and why were these chosen? Well, we compiled a town-wide roofing survey utilizing the building department data to help verify roof ages, which along with site investigations. Those site investigations were done by DPW staff, town staff, and a roofing expert, and we all utilize non-destructive investigation methods. Just some of them already were destroyed, but we didn't want to make things any worse by peeling up some things. So we did a non-destructive way of doing it. The service life and deterioration extent of the roofing systems were used as primary factors for consideration and for condition rating. And why do we pick these in order of importance? Again, it's prioritized based on the overall condition and the failure impacting the facility operations and business disruption. Some of these, it would be catastrophic if some of these things happen. We're closing down school. We don't want to be doing that. That's why we move these things up, and that's why we're trying to work with that order. So what happens if this without a referendum? We would have to have multiple CIP projects for roofing, just like before. It would delay roof replacements and likely incur greater year-to-year expenses in leak repair. It doesn't include an inflation cost, which will reduce the actual roof replacement power, and again, it just prolongs the roofing issue. And another aspect, like I talked about before, was if we keep funding things through CIP, we're taking away other projects that other departments could be wanting to do. We have the vehicle replacement program and machinery and the like. So, thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Now, Kasha Perciello will present on the Recreation 2021 question.
Welcome, Kasha.
Thank you. Good evening. Kasha Perciello, Assistant Town Manager. So the recreation referendum is anticipated to cost approximately $6.5 million total. Here is an overview of the latest Higgins Park Master Plan. What's great to report here is a few of the planned amenities have already been funded both in the fiscal year 21 and the fiscal year 22 budgets. So as you can see, the planned amenities are the walking trails, the playscapes, basketball court, fitness stations, band shell, pool, and splash pad. So I will, and some good news we got today from Donald Nunes is that our playscape is in, and it will work will begin on that in the coming weeks. So that's very exciting. So some of these things, 3 of these things really are in the works, and we'll be seeing some results soon. So I'll go in a little more detail here. I'll start with the splash pads. So the referendum contemplates putting 3 additional splash pads across town, and these splash pads will be located at Green Manor Park, Hazardville Memorial School, and Prudence Crandall School. The approximate cost of each of these splash pads would be $125,000. And especially, I just want to point out, Green Manor Park, we just expanded our community garden program there. We have some garden plots already reserved there and being used this year. And again, this an addition of a splash pad there would really make that a family destination. You could bring your kids to the splash pad while you tend to your community garden. So we're very excited about that location. I'm sorry about that. The Higgins Park pool would be located, and splash pad would be located at Higgins Park. And I'll have a slide following this to get in a little more detail. So this contemplates a state-of-the-art, zero-entry, 25-meter pool with a splash pad outside the pool fencing area. So the splash pad could be used during warmer months for a little longer. Also includes freestanding bathrooms and locker rooms. And this would replace the Lamagna pool that is going to be opening for its last season in the next week, I believe. So here is a bit of a close-up of just the pool splash pad area, just to vision it a little bit. As you can see, St. Adalbert's Gymnasium is up above. You have the pool directly below that. That would be fenced in. And then you have those 3 blue circles is where the splash pad is envisioned to go. So outside the pool fence, so it could be used a little longer. The light green structure, lime green structure, is a picnic area. And then right below that, and shaded in, is where the playground is going to be. So that playground is going to be for toddlers, older kids. It's also going to have a nice big swing set. So you can see it's really a full recreational complex right behind our town hall. In addition, so the walking trail was actually funded in the fiscal year 22 CIP. This latest plan envisions a 1/4 mile and a 1/3 of a mile loop, so 2 different loops, so you can really choose how far you go and to take different paths when you walk. That will have decorative lighting, and it will be able to be used year-round. In addition, we're contemplating fitness stations along the path as well, so you can work out as you walk around. Here is a vision, an idea of the Higgins Park bandshell, and this would just provide the community with access to performing arts, especially things like summer concerts. This would have green space seating, which means it would accommodate chairs, blankets, whatever makes you comfortable. And then the parking expansion. So next door, the town has a lease and option to purchase on 800 Enfield Street, which we call the Enfield Express, which is our drive-through service there. That is also the home of our tax and assessor's office. And as of May of this year, it's also the home of our Thompsonville Police Substation. So we envision the land behind Enfield Express. There's a lot of wooded area there. That would be cleared, and it would create additional parking to support the recreation complex here, and that would have approximately 83 additional spots there. It would also help the flow of traffic, and we would also have access from Route 5 into the park with that addition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Chief Fox and Chief Riggett will present on the Regional Public Safety Complex. Question.
Welcome you both. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Chief Riggett and myself, thank you for the opportunity to join you. Allow us a few minutes to explain a little bit of history, and then where we would like to see the future take us, and where we'd like to see the future take this community. The current Enfield Police Department at 293 Elm Street was created in 1991. Was built in 1991, 30 years ago now. And the vision at that time was for that state-of-the-art facility that, in all candor, I suspect was probably adequate might be a fair word for it in 1991. That facility, as you are likely aware, was scheduled to have a basement. It was scheduled to have a second floor. Neither of those materialized, and that was the will of the council and the community at that time. We certainly are pleased to provide the services that we can provide in the infrastructure that we currently enjoy. Against that backdrop, in particular, it is a pleasure to share with you, at the risk of repeating what I've said so many times, I think it's important, you have the benefit on the police department side to have a nationally and state accredited law enforcement organization, 100 strong, thank you very much, or on our way to 100 strong, thank you very much, that really prides itself on our responsiveness to community needs. I would also remind you, at the risk of revisiting this issue, we are one of only 21 Connecticut departments to enjoy this CALIA accreditation standard, and within the state accreditation paradigm, the police department is accredited to the highest of those 3 state accreditation standards. We have, unfortunately, however, outgrown the facility that we are in. Similarly, and I will not make it a point this evening in any way to steal any of Chief Riggett's thunder, but to the extent that the first slide falls to me, I think it appropriate, because Enfield EMS in 1991 was housed within the Enfield Police Department. They occupied the entirety of what we now use as one evidence processing bay. So they had one indoor garage facility, if you will, and the ambulance ran out of that facility. I suspect to say that facility was adequate in 1991 would strain my credibility, and I don't know that Chief Riggett would agree with the assessment of adequate. Against that backdrop, the council very graciously and I think very appropriately allowed this community, under Mr. Bronson's direction, to acquire 2 parcels of land totaling 7 acres at a reasonable $210,000 at the corner of Elm and Moody to allow this potential build-out that we're discussing with you today. The location and the availability of that land was crucial, and it was a pleasure to watch the council make that decision that we think set the stage for the very positive developments that we can talk to you about this evening. The issues that we would present to you, and again, I know I speak for the both of us when I share that we are proud to provide the level and caliber of service that we do, but we have to be willing to identify for you what we think our Achilles heels are. Within the police department, we have a lack of adequate storage space for records. We have closets that are filled to the brim. We have equipment that's stored in cells. We have stuff that's jammed into every nook and cranny where we can find the available space. And it's simply not as easy as purge it out. We have records retention requirements and equipment needs that mandate that we have the equipment that we have. Both the male and female locker rooms at the PD are inadequate for the size and the number of members within the department. We have asked non-essential employees in terms of locker space to give up their locker space. And I would share with you with a quiet sense of pride, I was the first one that said, I don't need a locker, give it to someone who does. Our training ability is unfortunately limited. It is limited by the facility infrastructure that is currently available. We have a small to medium training room that fulfills our needs, but it is a choke point, if you will, in terms of our ability to take services and training and the quality of the men and women and the professionalism that you can enjoy. It is a choke point to some degree on the ability that we have from a training perspective because of the limitations of that facility. We also do not have, and this is significant, crucial would not be an overstatement, we do not have a matted training room. And what we would do with a matted training room in particular would be to incorporate some of the less than lethal force option training skills and scenarios and some of the de-escalation strategies that we're doing now, but we're doing them in borrowed space wherever we can find it. We're over at the annex. We're trying to borrow space from fire departments in order to do some of that modern day training that we know society rightfully demands. Firearms training is also an Achilles heel. We have annual firearms qualification at what is effectively a sandpit. It is a sandpit at the recycling center, and that's what we use for daytime firearms qualification. It is a requirement, and additionally a very good idea, that we engage periodically in low light or no light firearms qualification. We beg, borrow, and steal range space, courtesy of the positive relations that we have with the Connecticut Department of Corrections. All of these are items that we've successfully worked around, but they are areas where vast improvement is a strong suggestion.
Thank you. Good evening.
Welcome.
So in the 90s, Enfield Police Department operated the town ambulance. Enfield EMS was born in the early 2000s. And in 2005, we operated out of Enfield Police Department, like Chief Fox was explaining. We enjoyed being there, but we quickly outgrew that space. And in 2007, we moved to our current station at 1296 Enfield Street, which is an old Enfield firehouse. We realized, while we were appreciative of more space, we knew that that was not going to be our forever home. We've already outgrown that space as well. So the current station has 4 bays for vehicles. We own 10. We have inadequate staff parking at that location. There's no training or conference space. It's just one open room. There is no storage space. Particularly temperature control is very important in our field, in the medical field. We don't have storage with any temperature control, and vehicles outside doesn't allow temperature control. We have no lockers or locker rooms. We have inadequate rest areas, and there's no separate employee workspace and limited office space in our current station. Thank you.
So what you'll see before you now is a schematic, is a graphic of what the current facility structure and what the add-on to the facility structure would look like. What you see below you, or what you see at the bottom of the screen, is Elm Street, and it is running right to left, left to right, as you look at the slide in front of you. And Moody Road is running, effectively, it runs east-west. It's to the left-hand side of your screen. It's up and down as you're looking at the slide. And it takes perhaps a moment to orientate yourself to what you're looking at, but I think it is time well spent. You'll see the current police department, which is really to the right. It's about the right third of what you see before you in that toward the lower right-hand corner. You'll see the entrances that we have on Elm Street, and you'll see the parking in the back. The parking during day shift, the parking when everyone is in, the parking at shift change is also very tight. When we try to run an in-service class, it is also very tight. Vehicles that are stored, evidence that needs to be stored, that needs to go out back, the presence of any of our larger vehicles that go out back make the back of it rather tight as well. So we'll take a look at the schematic in a little bit more detail in a subsequent slide, but to the extent that it's helpful for you, it was very helpful for me. Take a look at what you see before you and think about the current structure as that right-hand third of that darker rectangular area, and then we'll build out from there to the left on the current building, at least as you're looking at that slide. So our vision for the complex, and this one perhaps is even more helpful. I would also offer that the easiest way to grasp this one is to break it up into thirds. The right-hand third of what you're looking at is the current EPD footprint. And every one of our workspaces is labeled, what they're currently utilized for, and how we make those spaces function. The center third would be effectively a shared space, and you'll see in greater detail in subsequent slides specifically what that shared space is going to look like and what EMS would look like all the way over to the left. But the building addition and the facility build-out calls for moving, as you look at this, to the left of the current PD building into that shared space that EMS and the PD would work in together as needed, that they could use as needed, that we would use as needed, and then that dedicated state-of-the-art EMS facility with adequate parking and entrance for EMS onto Elm Street, as well as one onto Moody Road. On the PD side, these are the problems that we believe that we have addressed, and this is the modernization that is 30 years in the making, if you will. This facility build-out will provide adequate space for the 100 officers and support staff that the PD is now very happy to employ and to enjoy the services of. This will provide a locker room space and a physical fitness facility. We have got officers, and we're grateful for this, but it is an ad hoc facility. Officers in an EPD makeshift gym that is staffed with military surplus equipment that we have a workspace for over at the annex. The firearms range issue is solved with a state-of-the-art firearms range that will be underground within this facility. This will allow us to do our normal firearms training. It will allow no light and low light, which, as I referenced earlier, are required, and they're very good ideas as well. This will include the ability to offer decision-making firearms platform training, and similar to the Blue Line training that many of you acquainted yourselves with this year and in previous years, and also to use live fire simulations in a de-escalation strategy type of mode. This facility build-out will also allow for dedicated workspace for our social service partners. We currently have 2 DCF employees that are co-located at EPD, and we have 1 part-time social service employee who is located at EPD. Now, have no doubt, these are wonderful additions to what we can do within the police department, but they are jammed into the detective division at makeshift work area desk locations. The facility build-out will allow them appropriate work locations and appropriate office space. We have the capacity, for purposes of this build-out, to also consider in the future a location for regionalized dispatch services. The General Assembly has wrestled for several years with a mandate that the multiple PSAPs within Connecticut, the public safety answering points, be consolidated into a lesser number. This year, the General Assembly came very, very close to mandating that happened, eventually reducing that to a study. If and when that happens in the future, and I do think it will be a when, some of our smaller municipal partners may very well be looking for our assistance, and I'd like to be able to say yes with an understanding that that would benefit those communities, but it would benefit Enfield as well for our purposes. Next to last, we are also able, with this build-out, to move our Enfield Joint Operations Center, which is currently housed off-site, as you are likely aware. This is the location that the cameras feed into. This is the location where we can run large-scale events, protests, disturbances, labor actions. We can ensure the public safety at these large-scale events. We are hampered by the inefficiencies that we currently suffer by having that location off-site. By building out the locker rooms, the EJOC can go into the current locker space. In summary, this will allow your Enfield Police Department to move from great to greater in terms of the services that it provides.
Thanks. So this slide shows the EMS station proposal. And really the bread and butter of the EMS station is the bay right in the center, which would hold 8 vehicles. Again, indoor parking and temperature control is important to our vehicles. The access to Moody and to Elm, which is cut off by this picture, but you saw in the previous slide, is important. And then there's additional parking, staff parking. To the left of the bay, you'll see mostly, I'd say, employee living space. So there's dining and kitchen area, there's locker rooms, there's bathrooms, there's more storage space, there's work office space. And then to the right of the bay is where you would see conference rooms, training rooms, office space, again, more storage, temperature control storage, copy room. This would meet all of our needs and allow for growth of the department, future growth.
Perhaps the crown jewel of this undertaking in totality is the slide that is before you at present. we envision a regional conference center which will allow the town of Enfield to continue in the leadership role that you currently have and that we currently maintain. What you'll see before you is a state-of-the-art auditorium and conference room with an overall capacity, if it was filled, of 207 people. 173 in the large conference room, the large auditorium. 20 individuals could fit into the medium conference room and 14 in the small conference room. Envision, at least from the police side, and I would defer to Chief Riggett if she wishes to comment on the EMS side, envision on the police side that police officers enjoy 6 months of training, hardcore training, but it is at the recruit level and it is at the beginning of one's career. Thereafter, officers receive mandatory in-service training, which is approximately 2 weeks or so every 3 years, firearms and medical and certain other specialty skills being on top of that. But where we have had to be creative and where we see the opportunity for growth and potential economic benefit to the town would be to have a state-of-the-art facility where we would be able to offer up training space to some of the national level training providers that are out there that will come in to a given community if there is a suitable space such as what you see before you, and they will offer training in some of the highly sought areas: internal affairs, police ethics, de-escalation strategies, responding to the active aggressor, certain accident investigation programs, police applicant background, the list goes on. And by bringing in these vendors, the vendors will either afford Enfield free seats for hosting them in our facility, and then effectively they market their program to neighboring departments, and they make their money by bringing those individuals in who pay tuition rate. Or if we were ever so interested, we could take that monkey on our back, contract with that vendor, and then that vendor comes to town and we effectively sell the open seats. There's a little bit more risk associated with option 2, but there's also a substantial upside to option 2. When I describe what's before you as the crown jewel of this undertaking, it caused me to smile from ear to ear when I saw the schematic on this one.
No, yeah, so just to piggyback, for EMS training purposes, a lot of our training would happen jointly between the Enfield Police Department and EMS, so responding to mass casualty training, continuing medical education that both staff need. We would be able to offer some bridge training from EMT and paramedic school to field training, which the industry needs. And then we can proudly continue our first aid, CPR, stop the bleed training that we provide to the public in this facility. Thanks.
I will just close. The public safety regional complex was not something we anticipated to go to referendum this fall. But because the council last fall saw the wisdom of acquiring the 7 acres adjacent to the department for future growth, we then were able to put together a plan, which you've just seen, which we then talked to Representative Arnone and Representative Hall about and asked that they would sponsor the legislation to the bonding commission to fund this. And because we have a very talented staff, and when we had a meeting, and I'm going to address the reason I think the governor was interested in this program is because of the regional approach and the fact that not only helps one town but 4 towns and the all northern Connecticut region itself. Donald Nunes, one of the select persons, we were looking at this before we had submitted it to the bond commission. She said, well, where did you get you already hired the architects and you did this schematic and this conceptual? And we said, no, Donald Nunes did it. She said, you were able to do that in staff? She said, I have to wait months and I have to go to the finance committee and get funds approved to do it. She said, it would take me a year just to have that diagram. So we do things a little differently here, and because we do that, and because we have a talented staff, and that we have a council that has a vision, we were able to acquire the land, put the schematics, put the entire package together with our vision of a regional center, talk to the adjacent towns of East Windsor, Suffield, and Windsor Locks, get the support of our state's attorney's office for the state of Connecticut with the regional approach, get the support of Congressman Courtney, who wrote a letter, and then have the bill ultimately submitted to the legislature by Representative Arnone and Representative Hall, and then amazingly, within a few short months after, and we did speak with the governor's office to tell them, with the way society is and what people are demanding, and increased training and giving departments the resources to de-escalate and to have skills, as the chief said, not 2 or 3 weeks over a 3-year period, but to be able to do this on an ongoing basis and offer it to other departments in the state. I think that's why the governor then put it into his bonding bill. Now, we put this up because we asked for $12.8 million, and that's the bill number, the House and Senate. Senator Kissel also was called to say that he made efforts on our behalf as well for this in the Senate. We thank him as well. The request in the House was sponsored, as I said, by Tom and Carol. The governor, we're waiting for him to sign the bill, but it's his bill. It's been passed, or hopefully will. But it's a 2-year budget. It's a biennial budget. These projects that he includes then go before the bonding commission over that 2 years in no given order, except where the governor wants them to be. So we still have some waiting to do. Our representatives in center and we as well are reaching out to the governor's office to say, when will that be? And will it be the full $12.8 million? They're confident. We're hopeful it will be sooner than later and for that amount. But just so our residents know, that is what we anticipate, and that's what we're telling the council. We anticipate that the full cost of the project is $12.8 million, and it will be paid for with the bond money that comes from the state. I had a very good question earlier from Councilor Hemler. Is that a loan? Is it to be paid back? Does it mean that it's not our facility? No. The way the bond commission works, the governor picks certain projects, they borrow for it, and all of Connecticut, he picks projects he thinks are worthy for the town that's sponsoring it, but also for the state. And we made that cut. But we wanted to be able to have this on in November if he gives us the nod that the money will be forthcoming in that amount, so we can put it on in November. And if he says he's going to be doing it next year, well, then there's a gubernatorial election. We'll be ready to go then. But this was done with lightning speed. It's an incredible project, and I think it's in no small measure to the effect and the impression that both Chief Fox and Chief Riggett in their presentations in the bond, the case that they made, the fact we're working with other towns in the area, that I think it's something that the governor is striving to do, is to share services in Connecticut, and we've been part of that, and I think that's why we were chosen. But we'll stay tuned on this one, but I just want our residents to know that we expect that we will. You already put in $250,000 for the land and some other monies, but the full scope and bulk of it we anticipate would be paid for with bonding. I'm just going to go back to the beginning before we open it up for questions, Mayor. But again, we have a very seasoned team on the road project. JP and John have been here. It's not their first rodeo, so I think there's a real trust level. There's real confidence, and also, the other fella, the third amigo or the third musketeer, who's now our Director of Public Works, Donald Nunes. Not only is he our director and has brought that skill to all of Public Works, but his expertise and where we hired him from was doing these road projects. So we're in a really good position, and I think we have a good confidence level from our residents that they'll support that referendum. The roof referendum, as we've seen, I think that graphic we're going to put out and use it in some of our outreach to the community. When it rains, that's what's happening. We're just throwing money down the drain, literally to the tune of $77,000 a year, and just the hard cost to the contractors to fix the leaks. It makes much more sense to do it at once, economies of scale, and also, for the school roofs, we take advantage, then we get a 70% reimbursement. The third referendum, which is probably one of the most fun questions, I think is a reasonable amount. Council can adjust it one way or the other. But you know what I like about all three of these? Council did it in a phased approach. We didn't wait just to do things at referendum. We did a building consolidation last year, so we're getting rid of at least 2 buildings. We're going to be putting them on the market. Lamagna will be torn down and consolidated. We're selling where the building and grounds is because they're going out to the annex. Social services moving out of High Street. That building's going to sell for almost $500,000. So not only will we not have the upkeep, but we have the economies of we've brought things together, less custodial, much more efficient. You already did that. What I like about Higgins Park, you didn't wait all or nothing for a referendum. Last fall, before we even had the budget in place, you funded the 1/4 mile and the 1/3 walking trail for the Higgins Park. You funded the playscape. It's here. It's going to be in a couple of weeks. You funded a new outdoor basketball court. That's already done. Now we say to the voters, would you like to make it magnificent? Would you like a band shell? And would you like to put some exercise stations? Because our experts tell us that the seniors love to walk and they love to utilize the fitness center. So we want to make this something that everybody wants to come to. Seniors to go walking, young folks with their families. And the St. Adalbert, the vision of this council, we've talked about it before. Some buildings are beyond hope and can't be saved, like Lamagna, so we tearfully say goodbye, but we move on. Other buildings, you see the history of it and the fact that they can be reclaimed. That's St. Adalbert's. You already funded, we're not asking the taxpayers, you already funded to do the new 9,000 square foot indoor basketball court, volleyball, a stage, that's already been funded, and we have some action items tonight to make that a reality. So what we're asking there is, because we're closing Lamagna, let's put a pool there so we don't take that away from the community. Bob is an expert in that. The whole town will benefit from it. And you know what I really like? The Enfield Express, you had the vision to get that property during COVID so we could do drive-through services for our residents, but also because it was such a big piece of property, we're going to double the parking spaces behind Town Hall for the park and St. Adalbert's. Because what do we hear? People want a facility, but they go there and they can't get a parking space. They've got little kids, they're packing carriages and they're walking 2 miles to get to it. So my point of all this is, Council has had a very prudent approach to look at these things, to phase them in, and now on the bigger items to say to our residents, do you want to go to the next step and invest in the infrastructure, the capital improvement, but the road is necessary, roofs are necessary. I submit recreation is necessary because people for a lot of years in this town have said we need more for our young people and for our seniors to enjoy. It is going to be a real a beacon of surrounding towns to have a park like this. We already have the Enfield Market, which is a great success. You'll now be able to have concerts. We're going to have the pool. You have a splash pad. It's going to be a destination. Come to the Enfield Market on a Sunday and bring your kids to the splash pad. Use the playscape. Take a walk around the park. Go in and perhaps utilize the pool for summer hours. It's going to be incredible. And I think the cost is a very reasonable one for what we're getting. And I want to tell you, we're being fiscally conservative. It's important for our residents to know that we do a Standard & Poor's rating. And what Standard & Poor's wants to see communities do is balance. They want to make sure you're not taking on too much debt, but that you're investing in infrastructure and your CIP, so all of a sudden in 10 years, you don't have a colossal collapse and you raise your mill rate by 100 and everybody's taxes double. So John has bounced this off our bond counsel and our consultant and Standard & Poor's to reach the sweet point. We don't want to borrow too little, but we don't want to borrow too much. We want it to be just right. And I think that that's something that we have presented to you. We'll hope you and the rest of us over the summer will communicate this to our residents so they will support it. July 5th, we'll have a public hearing here on all these so the public can come forward and give us their opinion. We anticipate the first meeting in August. We'll have a community conversation, again, for an hour and a half, where we can then have staff and answer questions because the public hearings by law only allow people to give their opinion. So we'll do a community conversation in August to let there be a back and forth. We can make adjustments as necessary. You can adopt the final questions the end of August, and then it would be on the referendum ballot, the 4 questions separately in November, so people can say, I like A, I like B, I don't like C, I like D. So people will have the choice. But I'll tell you, we are in great fiscal shape in this town. We have a very healthy reserve fund. And again, we've done things in stages. We didn't go to the public and say it's all or nothing. Well, we're not going to do consolidation or we're not going to do a playscape until you give us all this money to referendum. We did it in phases. And I think we're very fortunate to have the professional and seasoned staff that we do to implement the policies that this council has deemed appropriate to ask us to implement. And with that, we're pretty much on schedule.
So what we'll do, real quick, what we'll do is, since you guys are here, let's do public safety first, then we'll go back in order with the roads, the roofs. So again, we're not having you guys come up back and forth. Any questions specifically for public safety? Councilor Sparrazza, then Councilor Sakala.
I think this addition is absolutely fantastic. The people of Enfield deserve it. Our officers deserve it. And Enfield will continue to be a regional leader. My only question, Chief Fox, is maybe I missed it up there. I didn't see any provision for the EOC, for the Emergency Operations Center. I don't know if you've had occasion in your time here to use it. I did many times. And those are uncomfortable, long duration events, and where we used to set up in the training room was not adequate. Would that be something in the Joint Operations Center would be in the OC, or
I'm grateful that I have not had to activate it since my arrival. Thank you to Mother Nature and to other circumstances beyond my control. I would envision running such an event out of the Joint Operations Center because it does give us the advantage of being able to see the camera feeds in real time.
Right. And I think, too, you talked about it, but I didn't want to gloss over the fact that having that complex, that auditorium, and having providers from around the nation come there to provide the training, giving us the free slots, and marketing it to area towns. Or option two, because we have a lot of Academy certified instructors, if we were to do that and opened up seats to Suffield and East Windsor, it also has the potential as a revenue source for the town.
It does. The national providers do. Our in-house experts do.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to oversell this early on, but there was also at least a very light preliminary inquiry about the possibility of us serving as a location for a post-satellite academy.
Sure, like New Britain and...
Correct. We
right.
would not run it. A vendor would run it, but we would have that facility available.
Yeah, and of course, too, throw in the fact that when we have to do our regional training, we're sending officers on overtime, sometimes travel time all over the place. To have them all here, it's just a wonderful thing. So I'm pretty excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to add, and I know we're running on time, but this regional center, we could spend the whole evening just talking about what this will bring to the community and to the state. But I also would like to say, too, I've gone to the fire chiefs meeting, and I don't want to leave them out because they're going to be welcome here, and there are a lot of trainings that we will do with them jointly, EMS tactical, mass casualty. I've offered it to them, too, that sometimes they're training in different areas, but this state-of-the-art conference center, they will have carte blanche use, and they'll be welcome there, so we can all train together as we have done very, very well collaboratively over my last 30 years, and we'll continue that with the fire departments and the chiefs as well. I just didn't want to fail to mention that.
Councilor Sakala and Councilor Muller.
Sure, I'll try to be quick. Two things. More of a comment, the first one. I'm really worried about this one in particular. I think the wording on the referendum question is going to have to be very clear. Normally it's clear as mud, but if we can try to make it more clear, it's nothing to do with you guys. It's bond counsel and, the referendum writers. So, because if it's 12.8 that's going to be given to us by the state, it's going to be really important that that's very, very clear in the question, because we're going to have 4 questions, and that worries me that all 4 are not going to pass. But a minimum of 2 of them have large reimbursement rates. So we just want to make sure that's very, very clear. My question really is going to be public safety, but it brings in the roofs. So we have the public safety complex on the roof referendum. Is it going to make sense to do it if we're going to be either redoing, adding on, or anything to the public safety complex? Is it going to make sense to keep that on the list? Or?
It's a good question. Donald can address it. It's much like the dog pound. I'm hopeful that next year in the CIP we're going to move that completely so we wouldn't spend the funding. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the purpose of a secondary list, that if you don't use it all for the first, we've listed the other items that we can then switch it to and do them there.
Right. I don't remember where it is on the timing, but as long as we time it right, so if we don't need to do it, you don't want to do it twice. All right, those are my only 2 for this.
Thank you. Councilor Muller.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm excited about the regional public safety complex. I just had one question. The parking for the convention center, was there enough? It was hard to tell by the drawing. Will there be enough to have the convention and employees as well?
There will be.
There'll be plenty up top.
Yes, sir.
From there. All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions on public safety? Councilor Hemler.
Just one quick question. I know originally there was a path to the Moody Road facility for gassing up, and I didn't see that on the list. Is that still part of the plan?
I think that's part of the long-term plan. There's concerns about what that's going to look like and the possibility that there's some wet areas between our facility and there that would have to be worked around.
Anyone else? Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. In a second, our roads. Just go in order now. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you again. So, Councilor Bosco, then Councilor Hemler. This is on the roads part of the referendum.
Yeah, thank you. I got to thank you guys. I mean, we put a lot of work in
this, and poor Donald, he gets it all done, and then we send him back so people can understand, really, we're doing exactly what's needed to be done now, where we were doing roads all the same. And it was sort of a waste to do a road the same that's got a lot of traffic to something that doesn't. And Donald had everything all drawn up, and I came to the caucus and I said, hey, look, we got to do things differently. We got to try to get more roads done. And that's when they came in with this, doing what we need to do without the curbing. And I guess it was all, what brought it to my attention was when we had to set that thing over there on
The hydrodynamic
yeah,
separator.
I'm looking at that and I'm going, whoa, how much money is this? We're spending a lot of money for something we don't really, what we need, but it may not be necessary. And then he had it at one price, and we're looking, and there's just no way. We had too many roads that were really bad. So just to let everyone know, this roads referendum was hashed over and over again, and looked at a whole bunch of different times, and this is what we need to do to make and keep going forward on our roads. So I want to thank you guys, because, like I said, we put you through hell, and you guys coming out swinging and came up with a good plan.
Councilor Hemler, then Councilor Muller, and Councilor Riley.
Thanks for the presentation. Every time a list comes out, I look at it because I've got 2 really big neighborhoods in my district that are in dire need, and I'm glad they're still on there, but the years kind of bother me. So Meadowlark, Broadleaf, the Yale area, especially Meadowlark, all those streets, they're a mess. It's down for 2023. If there's any way to push that up, because they're in dire need. And then Walnut, Garfield, and all those little streets there too. They're in desperate need. So that's my only comment.
They definitely are, and as we said, the schedule that we showed is very, very preliminary. We just, we had to start with something, and all the streets on the list really have some streets that are in really bad condition.
Yeah, I understand. I needed to say it, so
Okay.
I said it.
Thank you.
Councilor Muller, then Councilor Riley.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a quick question. Now, some of the PCIs were close to 70 or 75, and we're still doing them. Is it because you're already in that neighborhood?
For the most part, those streets, yes, they are.
Equipment's already there, right? It makes sense.
Right.
While you're there.
Like we had said, we're trying to make sure we don't leave any streets out of neighborhoods, and we're finishing neighborhoods that we've done most of the streets. So, thank you. Okay.
Councilor Riley, Councilor Ungary.
Okay, so the question I had a few questions. When I saw Summers Road up there, it was from Taylor to the Summers line. Didn't we already do Summers Road? I drive down there all the time. So are we?
That's a really good question. What we did on Summers and Moody was similar to what we did on Mullen Road. It really wasn't the full solution. We did it for safety purposes, and if you do notice on the schedule, those were on the last year. What we did there was really, in effect, a mill and pave. So we just milled a little bit off the top and paved it to get that to be a little safer. But in reality, that road needs full base. Similar, again, this is exactly what we did on Mullen Road. We did kind of a Band-Aid, if you will. We'll get to reuse that material that we put down, reclaim it, but those 2 streets need more than what we did. But it is safer now that we did those.
It's a beautiful ride down that road now. I guess, do we have, and are we going to have it on our website, is there like a secondary list? Like, the roofs, you do them, and then if we have money left or whatever, then there's a secondary set or a third set?
We do have an ancillary list. We
Okay.
just didn't have it on the abbreviated presentation.
Okay.
So yes.
And then we'll
we
be able to see, the public will be able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Because I do have, some asked, and I agree, I got, a couple questions about Sword Ave, my street. The road washes into my driveway all the time. There's a small part, I got a question, and it's interesting because there's a small part of Ridge Road that gets overlooked. It's west of Cartier and St. James, and includes Falcon Crest and Ridgeview. So I've got questions on that, why that one small part of Ridge Road seems to get neglected while east side of it gets done. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask those questions. That was all I had. Thank you.
Councilor Ungar, then Councilor Mangini.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your presentation. During your presentation, you mentioned that you're not going to do any new curbing. However, a resident on South George Washington had called me and said part of the street is curbed, the other part is not. And so I was wondering if that's for water drainage or it got overlooked, or are you going to finish it?
I don't know where that is on George Washington, but.
It's South George Washington?
South George
It's right near
Washington.
the Enfield Public Library.
Okay, no, I know where South George Washington is. I'm not sure why a portion of that has curb and a portion does not.
They said part of it's curbed and the other part isn't,
That
where
could-
originally it all had curbing. So they were wondering.
Yeah, I don't remember. We did that street a while ago, if I'm not mistaken. We did work on that a while ago.
All right, thanks.
We'll look into that
Okay,
and
thank
find
you.
out.
But
Councilman-
the thing is that when we do the design for these new roads, we're going to tell the designer not to curb the road if there is no curbing there already. So if there is curbing, we're gonna replace it with curbing. But if there is not, then we're gonna not put new curbing. We're gonna let the water infiltrate instead of taking everything into the catch basins. So that's part of it's part of the design. You know, when you talk to the consultants, you gotta tell them this is what we're looking for. So that is the plan, not to put curbing if there is no curbing there already.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mangini and Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. And I know from years back with the roads project how hard and complicated it is for you to come up with work on which roads. However, I do want to go back in time a little bit here. This council did approve a certain amount of funding to do some work on Summers Road. I don't recall the amount of money that this council allowed or agreed to. I don't want to see neighborhoods getting into my road first, your road last, etc. But what I do want to ask is if you remember or if you could recall the amount of funding that we did approve. I know it was a transfer, I believe, and for what, I know you said something about milling. Was it used for milling? Okay, so what will have to be done in addition to that process? The part A, part B of my question. How much and what next?
Counselor, we did that all in-house with DPW staff. We trimmed up some of the side of the road, and we had it paved, and we used funds that we had left over in the highway account. That's how we used that money to do that. We switched we asked for a transfer, and we put it into that one account to do that. So what's left over there is, again, we just trimmed up the edges a little bit, took some of the really rough spots off, and we just basically put in an 1.5 inch overlay over the whole thing. The base still is destroyed. That's why all the cracking and heaving, and that's why it causes it. We just, again, like John said, we just Band-Aided this for now. That's what was left. I don't remember the amount that we spent. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Thank you. Maybe we can get that figure. Thank you. Thank you.
I remember about 160,000. We used leftover winter plowing money
Correct.
that we.
DPW was
right.
innovative because it was so bad. We did it for the short term.
That
And
was just to make it safe.
right.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever went out there, you need to redig that. And then there's the pond there. That's also an issue right off or down at the pond, whatever you want to call it.
The culvert
right.
needs replacement as
Yeah.
well, which is more towards the
Yeah.
southerly side. So we have to work on that in addition to redoing the base of the road. So right now, that fix will get us a couple years, 2 to 3 years or 4 years, like Mullen Road. So that's what we're targeting for, just so we can get it back on the list for this referendum, just to do it
Thank
properly.
you. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I just want to thank everybody for the votes and reiterate what Joey said. I mean, we had everything all planned, and then Joey and I said, and the DPW Cindy was there as well. The sheeting of the water off and not capturing everything for me was a huge, I guess, obstacle that we have overcome. And now that we understand that we're doing that, I think this is really important. And it's good to see the state supporting us in not capturing every ounce of water that falls on our pavement. And in support of Councilor Ungary, I live right across from South George, Washington. That was done in 2000. The curbing wasn't put on the, I guess it'd be the northwest side. And really is a terrible erosion problem there. And the rest of that whole road is curbed. And it's always been a mystery to me as to why we didn't do that, because that road has quite a pitch to it and quite a slope, and the water does do some damage to the side road there. So hopefully we can look at that a little bit differently than we have in the past. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on roads? I'll just say this is just part of the program. Also, can we just make sure that when someone cuts our brand new road, that we are tracking and we have, and I'm saying this, I'm driving in, the beautiful job that was done on Post Office Road. You put in a nice walkway right across from the steel road to, I mean, really first-class job, because so many people cross over that road, mothers pushing it, the child carriage. Someone cutting that road, and it's buckled already. Yeah. And I know how much money it took to do that road. I got to tell you, I'm driving. I almost stopped, got out of my car, and said, this is what drives me nuts.
That one was a water break.
All right.
The one you're
Yeah,
talking
you can
about on
see the
Post Office
buckle.
Road.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know who, and I know
That's why
there's-
we try to talk to the utilities about those things.
And I know it's a utility. It's there's still a cut on Weymouth Road. Again, really well done job on Weymouth Road. 19 Weymouth Road, small little cut. They didn't go curb to the middle. And I got to tell you, when I don't see curb to the middle, I almost want to pull over and know wwho did it so I can call them myself. And I apologize, but it just seems, and I get it. Once the road's done, all of a sudden I hate to say it, I know it's almost like a coincidence. But I know there's other parts of town when you see just a beautifully done road, a cut, and it doesn't go curb to middle like it's supposed to. That's the only thing I just ask, part of this, that we just somehow maybe monitor it if there's a way of doing it. Well, because the roads, the program that's been run has been fantastic. Started back in 2000. The computer system that you guys use in 18. And what people don't realize in that PCI. It's interesting. I was on the council back then, and everyone said do the worst roads first, right? And you can see there's still some roads out there that we just haven't been able to get to for whatever reason, and are in tough shape. Yeah. So it's great to see those on the list. And but I don't. Just more of a statement than a question. But if we could, because it was a water main break.
It was, yeah.
Right.
We do track the cuts through excavation permits, and then sometimes you do see. They do have to do a temporary patch, and they have to wait a 3-month period before they do the mill and pave. And a lot of I know the gas company groups them. They have one contractor. They have come and do all their cuts at one time of the year, so it could be longer.
And that's the issue. If we look through this with Sword Ave, 3 years ago, the water company went in and destroyed that street. Yeah. And that's, I think, it's under some pretense that was going to be part of our future road referendum. So maybe we just think about that as we look at a couple more roads, if we, because again, the water company already went in and as you know, dug up that road from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So again, thank you. I mean, people don't realize economic development is part of your roads, and I mean about quality of your life. I mean, you drive a car and you hit a pothole, and there's nothing more frustrating. And the fact that I think. Now we're I think in the state of Connecticut, we're one of the higher PCI towns, right? I mean, I think maybe.
Yes.
And in closing comments, just let people know what they bought and how important it is as we continue to go forward.
The consultant that we use works with a number of the communities in the state, and they said that we are at the top of the charts as far as general condition of our roads.
The golden standard.
The golden standard.
And I think it's good because the amount of work that your staff does with the contractors, who we've been lucky, and the contractors do a pretty good job. I mean, there's a lot of coordination between your staff and the contractors. And I agree. I think we got this down pretty good. We're always looking to improve, but I mean, it really is a pretty well-oiled machine. I think this is, all four are obviously important. This one is just, this part of the referendum is very important. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roofs. So we're going to move on to roofs, and we'll end with recreation. So we're not going to take a break. So if anyone don't feel sorry, we're late. So we feel free to.
And again, we'll post this on the website, and we'll post the previous short outline we did in June together with it. And also, we're going to post, we had the consultant come in on the roads in the referendum on an extended. They did a very nice job, because I don't want to take it for granted that the public will, and rest on our laurels. We'll put that out there to reiterate what a fine job that we are the gold standard on roads, and we'll put out the more detailed in the weeds, as I call them, presentations for roads and roofs, so people are more interested and want to delve down. That'll be available too.
So roofs, Councilor, you saw your hand up?
Yep. Can I have one point of,
Go ahead, yeah.
before the roofs? Councilor Mangini, thanks to John Wilcox and his quick computer skills, was $110,000.
That was pretty close. Pretty close.
$110,000. So, thank you, John.
Plus or minus. I was plus or minus. Councilor Crissati, sorry, you got the floor.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of the people that did the presentations tonight. Going from the roads, the roof, recreation, regional, public safety complex. I have to commend you. Your presentation was outstanding, and trying to stay on task with everything here. Been very familiar with the roofs referendum. Many of us are on the facilities committee, and I know that you've spent hours and hours and hours, on 13.7 million, for town and school roofs, and the way that you prioritize them, I have to give you a lot of credit with that. And then to know that we're going to be receiving a 70% reimbursement. We really have to, once again, keep stressing that. And I think all of us here, on all four of these referendums, they're all important to our town, and we just have to remain positive and push forward and promote each and every one of these referendums and the presentations that everybody presented tonight. And that's what I really have to say. I'm not going to question anybody in terms of what was presented tonight.
Any questions specifically on roofs? I know we've had a number of conversations on this, so you may get off the hook. I don't see anything.
Thank you, Donald, for the presentation. Yeah. I just want to let the residents know it's important that this roof referendum passes. Going the other way, doing it in piecemeal, we were paying mobilization and demobilize 3 times for, say, Hazardville Memorial or those roofs.
Yes.
So that added up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's just those hidden. It's not really a hidden cost, but it's saying you don't realize how much it takes to get a contractor there,
right?
Get their equipment there, then get rid. Then they leave, then they come back. It's just like the manager said, it's economies of scale, and that's what we're doing. But to Councilor Crissati, I thank him for the kind words. Again, the Joint Facilities Committee has worked tirelessly on many reiterations of this, and my kudos to Jeffrey as well, because he's kind of spearheaded this whole thing, and I really appreciate all the work that Jeffrey has done and all the insight that he provides, because I definitely am not I'm definitely not one of those facilities kind of person. So give me a road any day. Give me a road any day.
All right, so I think you're off the hook. Recreation, Councilor Sakala.
So, not picking on recreation. Do we know do we have an estimate on how much the maintenance or annual water costs are going to cost for the splash pads?
Don, we actually worked it into the budget for the first one, so John has an understanding of the cost with Public Works, and we can supply that to you as well. And again, we put in for additional ones. I'm hopeful that we'll see what the response of the community is when we have the one up and running. It's supposed to be starting to be installed. I had Donald check like every 6 hours to make sure they're coming. And it's supposed to start on August 1st, or I told him he's going to be out there with a hose and a sprinkler. But that's a good, and my point is this. This is just our, at this point, recommendation for additional parts of town. If we put it in and no one comes, then you may not want to do any more. I don't think that's going to be the case.
So that's going to be my comment. We have one coming in on Parkman.
Right.
I think everybody's on board with Higgins.
Right.
I'm only going to say I'm really upset that you're getting rid of the field 700 more times.
That's okay.
But can't go a Higgins Park conversation without saying it. But I think that I like the idea of having one over Green Manor too, because there is a playscape there and the gardens and the skate park. But I don't see it necessary or smart to do 5 of them right now. I say do 1, do Higgins, see how it goes, and then let's push the other ones and kind of see if
I
we
respect
need
that
them.
opinion, and we just didn't want to be the ones to choose the area. But I think you're right. We'll see how this one goes. I think it's important to have it at the Higgins Park. But because the cost isn't so exorbitant, you could do one a year or do it in a CIP. So we throw that out. Let's have a conversation. Let's hear from the folks at the July meeting and the August with the conversation. And we will not be personally offended to scale it back to the one we have and one more. That's up to you. But I think that that's a very good point to be made. But I think it's imperative to have it as part of the park.
No, I agree. And so if you can just get me the number.
Sure.
Actually, one more question.
John he's looking, he may even be able to have it when he can give it under my manager
Is the
report.
Higgins Park one going to be the exact same size and layout as the other ones? That's going to be bigger, right? So that one's going to have a different annual cost. I'm actually more interested in the annual cost of the one at like Parkman. Or,
John can look it up because that had come up
Okay.
when we wanted to put it in the budget. So when I opened it, I had money to actually have water in it.
Okay.
Councilor Himmler.
Is there a way to exempt it from the sewer? Because it's kind of like watering your lawn. It's not really going into the sewer. Is there a way to exempt it from the sewer cost?
John will look at that because it's a town facility. He can answer that.
Okay.
We'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Anyone else on recreation? Kasia, you have one question with the pool. Is there a way to actually, with the pool, to use it longer where we can heat the pool? So if instead of opening up, in May, I know it's a lot of money, but I mean.
We can ask Donald to cost it out and get back
Maybe
to that.
some hot tubs.
No, we want people outdoors, and if it's a way we have competitions just don't happen in June, July, and August, right? I mean, they happen in September and they do happen in March. So I'm just throwing it out there as, if we cut back one, maybe we do a little bit more because I think it's a great idea, and we're gonna have some competitions there. I think we got to be a little more flexible than just a couple months out of the year.
And that's why we did this early, so that we have plenty of time to get feedback from the public and to get your input, so we can adjust and pivot if we need to. And I think it's absolutely imperative, as the Councilor Sakala had said, to let people know that we're doing the public safety complex because we received the full amount of the cost from the state, and we're going to have to work hard. I've already told the chief and Aaron that that's going to be their full-time, part-time job, is letting the public know and come up with innovative ideas before the referendum to make sure folks know that. And that's why it's a remarkable occurrence that we would have been able to do that in such short time. But I always, checks in the mail and all, until we see it, until the governor tells us this is the amount and this is when you're getting it, there's a good chance that, I would say it's 50-50 at this time. We'll even have it on the referendum, because it was not our intent to say, oh, well, we might get 12.8, but if we don't, you'll have to pay for the whole thing. We're transparent. We're not going to do that. We're going to know exactly what we're getting, and hopefully the only reason we propose it is my thought was, and also I will just tell you, we also submitted bond requests through both of our U.S. senators. We didn't just stop at the state. We were leaving no stone unturned, as John said, with the roads. We look for the money wherever we can get it. So our thought was we were going to get it fully funded from state or federal money, and we're still hopeful that that will be the case.
So in closing, before we will talk about this later, I think it's important, just one last thing, that people know that we actually are going to be meeting with the bonding agencies. So this will be presented to them as well. So this, again, as part of fiscal management, which was key when we passed JFK, they will have an idea. Maybe we won't know exactly what we're going to, but whether our bonding can handle the bonding rating. I know your meeting's the end of the month. We'll be transparent with the public. So again, we have the bonding power to be able to bond this out at very reasonable interest rates, which is a big key when it comes to financing these things, and reminding folks that we did this last summer where we renegotiated our bonds, some bonds for about a tune of $1 million savings. So this is constant management of our bonding money, and it's not just, again, we're looking to bond out 30 years, we punt it down the road. I mean, these are key when we sit in front of Moody's and Poor's and some of these other agencies when we're looking maybe to possibly increase our bond rating, which again would mean even more buying power, but at the very least maintaining our very solid bond rating. And we'll be completely upfront with people on that, because again, that's what you're really buying with these. All these projects are important. All 4 of them are. And then when you said, I hope everyone goes A, B, C, D, and it says yes. And hopefully that's what happens. But I think that's a key point for people to realize that we're going through that by the end of the month. And we'll certainly let people know by the time either the public hearing and or the community conversation.